The discovery happened on a cold morning. In the outer rim of known space, Coalition patrol ship detected something strange floating near the edge of the void. It was massive, dark, and older than anything they had ever seen. Captain Vic stood on the bridge of his vessel, his feathers ruffling with concern. He was from the Avon species, one of the founding members of the Galactic Coalition. For 3,000 years, 847 worlds had lived together in peace. They traded, they talked, they solved problems without violence. War was something from the history books, a barbaric practice that civilized species had abandoned long ago. What is that thing? Fricks asked his crew. Unknown, sir, replied his scanner officer. It appears to be a structure of some kind. Metal composition, unlike anything in our database. Age estimate impossible to determine. Could be 10,000 years old. Maybe more. Fix felt a chill run through his body. 10,000 years was before the Coalition existed, before most species had achieved space travel. Send a team. I want to know what we're dealing with. The boarding party entered the structure through an airlock that still worked somehow. Inside they found corridors filled with dust and silence. The walls were covered in strange symbols that their translators couldn't read. Everything was built on a smaller scale than Coalition standard, as if made for being shorter than most known species. Then they found the chamber. It was enormous, stretching for hundreds of meters in every direction. And it was filled with pods, thousands of them, arranged in perfect rows. Each pod had a small window, and through the frost-covered glass they could see faces. Beings with smooth skin, no scales or feathers, 2 eyes, 1 nose, a mouth, hair on their heads in various colors. Sir, the team leader's voice crackled over the radio. You need to see this. Within hours, the discovery had reached the Coalition Council on the Capital World. Scientists, historians, and politicians gathered to examine the footage. The debate began immediately. These are them, said Elder Nix, an ancient being whose species had been part of the Coalition since its founding. The ones from the old data fragments, the humans. The word sent a ripple through the council chamber. Humans, a name that appeared in corrupted files and incomplete records from before recorded history. Most scholars believed they were fictional, like the monsters that parents told children about to make them behave. Species so dangerous, so unpredictable, that they had destroyed themselves before achieving peaceful coexistence with others. That's impossible. Counselor Vix argued. He had left his ship to attend this meeting. Humans are mythology stories. They don't exist. These pods exist, Elder Nix replied calmly, and they contain living beings. The biological scans confirm it. They're alive, just sleeping. Then we destroy the structure, suggested General Mora, the head of Coalition military forces. She was from an amphibious species, tall and powerful, with skin that shimmered blue-green. If the legends are true, these creatures are dangerous. They come from a death world. They know nothing but violence and chaos. We don't kill sleeping innocents, countered Ambassador Colt, his reptilian eyes flashing with emotion. That's not who we are. We're civilized. We study, we learn, we communicate. The argument went on for 3 days. Finally, the council made a decision. They would wake the humans, but carefully, with precautions, on a remote station far from any populated worlds. If the humans proved dangerous, they could be contained. The process Took 2 weeks, scientists worked carefully to revive the sleepers, starting with just a few pods. The first awake was a male who identified himself as Tay. He was confused, disoriented, asking questions in a language that the translator struggled to understand at first, but within hours something remarkable happened. Tay began learning the coalition's common language at an incredible speed. By the second day he could speak it well enough to be understood. Where are we? Tay asked, his dark eyes sharp with intelligence. What year is it? When they told him, his face went pale. 10,000 years, he whispered. Everyone we knew is gone. Our children, our families, our entire civilization. More humans were awakened. 2,000 in total. That was all the functioning pods contained. The rest had failed over the millennia. Among the survivors was Dr. Hay, a woman with kind eyes and a sharp mind. She had been their expedition's xenobiologist, someone trained to study alien life. Now she found herself studying aliens from the perspective of being the alien herself. The humans were moved to Station Epsilon 7, a research facility orbiting a dead moon. They were given quarters, food, access to coalition databases, but they were also watched, monitored, and confined. The station was surrounded by warships just in case. Tay and Hay met with the Coalition Council through a video link. Counselor Vix led the questioning, his suspicion clear in every word. Tell us about your people, Vix demanded. The records say you come from a death world, that you're warriors, killers. Tay closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. We came from Earth. Yes, it was a difficult world, but that doesn't make us evil. We had war in our history, but we also had art, music, love. Families were complicated, like any species. And why did you leave? Asked Ambassador Colt more gently. Our son was dying, Hay explained. We had time, but not much. We built ships, gathered volunteers, and went searching for a new home. We put ourselves in cryosleep, hoping to wake up somewhere safe. Instead, we woke up here 10,000 years later, in a galaxy that remembers us as monsters. The council discussed the situation in private. Some wanted to give the humans a chance, others wanted them gone, sent back out into the dark between stars. The compromise was reluctant asylum. The humans could stay for now, but they would be restricted to certain colonies, watched at all times, and forbidden from accessing military technology. Ty accepted these terms, though Hai could see the pain in his eyes. They had traveled across the stars looking for hope, and instead found fear and suspicion. That night, Tay stood at a viewport, looking out at the unfamiliar stars. Hai found him there, her own expression troubled. They're afraid of us, she said quietly. Yes, Tay replied, and maybe they should be. We're not the peaceful species they are. We fought wars for thousands of years before we learned better, but we did learn. We changed. We grew beyond our violent past. Will they ever believe that? He asked. Tay didn't answer. He just stared at the stars, wondering if their ancient reputation would forever define them. Humans had existed only in legends for 10,000 years. Now they were real again, flesh and blood, trying to survive in a galaxy that had moved on without them. The question was simple but terrifying. Could the humans prove they were more than the monsters from old stories, or would the legends destroy them before they ever got the chance? 6 months had passed since the humans woke from their long sleep. They now lived on 3 different colony worlds spread out so they couldn't gather in large numbers. The Coalition still didn't trust them. But slowly things were changing. Da was one of the humans who adapted fastest to their new reality. She had been an engineer on the original expedition, and her mind was built for solving problems. Within weeks of arriving at Colony 7, she had figured out how the local power systems worked. Within a month she was suggesting improvements. This design is inefficient, she told the colony's chief engineer, a being with 6 arms and crystal-based biology. You're losing 30% of your energy in the conversion process. If you reroute the flow here and here, you could boost output significantly. The chief engineer was skeptical. That's not how we've always done it. I know, De replied with a smile, but maybe there's a better way. She was right. When they implemented her changes, the power output increased by 28%. Word spread. Soon other engineers were consulting with Da, asking for her input on various projects. She never claimed to be smarter than them, just different. Her mind worked in ways that Coalition species didn't naturally think. Not everyone was happy about this. Some saw human innovation as threatening. Others worried that humans were infiltrating important systems. Jin was having different struggles. He had been a soldier on Earth, part of the security team for the expedition. Now there were no threats to fight, no enemies to face. The Coalition was peaceful, and Jin didn't know how to exist in a world without conflict. He volunteered for everything: physical, construction, projects, heavy lifting, anything to keep his body and mind occupied. When the Coalition military announced training exercises open to all species, Jin was the first to sign up. Training officer, a being whose species had evolved from pack hunters, looked at Jin with curiosity. You understand this is just exercise, no real combat. We haven't had a war in 3,000 years. I understand, Jin replied. I just want to stay sharp. The exercises were simple by military standards: obstacle courses, tactical simulations, team coordination drills. Jin completed them all with ease, moving through challenges that other species found difficult. His human body evolved on a heavy gravity world with constant dangers, was built for physical stress. During one simulation, Jin's team was tasked with rescuing hostages from a mock structure. The other species approached it carefully, taking their time, following protocol. Jin analyzed the situation for 30 seconds, then moved. He climbed the outside of the structure, found an unguarded window, and had the hostages secured before his team even breached the front door. The training officer watched the replay in silence. That was unorthodox. It worked, Jin said. Simply, yes, the officer agreed. Slowly, it did. Tay spent most of his time in meetings trying to convince the Coalition that humans deserved more freedom. He had become their unofficial leader, the voice that spoke for all 2,000 survivors. It was exhausting work. Every day brought new restrictions, new concerns, new reasons why humans couldn't be trusted. Dr. Hay worked with Coalition scientists, teaching them about human biology and psychology. She tried to bridge the gap between species to help them understand that humans weren't the demons from their old stories. We're social creatures, she explained during one presentation. We form bonds, we care for each other, we create art and music and beauty. Yes, we have capacity for violence, but we also have capacity for incredible kindness. The scientists listened, some with genuine interest, others with clear doubt. Then came the accident on Colony Tertius 9. It was a mining colony, one of the coalition's largest sources of rare minerals. 300 workers of 15 different species labored in the deep tunnels extracting resources for the greater good. Then a support beam failed. The tunnel collapsed. 300 beings were trapped below ground, behind tons of rock and toxic gases. Coalition rescue teams arrived within hours. They assessed the situation and delivered their verdict: impossible. The tunnels were too unstable, the atmosphere too deadly. Any rescue attempt would just create more casualties. The trapped workers would run out of air in 72 hours. There was nothing to be done except send condolences to their families. Tay heard about this during a morning briefing. He immediately contacted the rescue coordinator. We can help, Tay said. Let us try. The coordinator, a being with smooth blue skin and 4 eyes, looked doubtful. It's too dangerous. Our best teams can't survive in those conditions. What makes you think humans can? Because we're from a death world, Tay replied quietly. Dangerous is what we know. The coordinator hesitated. The council had been debating for hours. Every minute wasted was a minute those workers were dying. Fine, she finally said, but if your people die down there, it's not our responsibility. Understood, Tay said. Within 3 hours, 45 humans were assembled at the disaster site. Jin was there along with Da and 30 other volunteers. They studied the situation, examining readings and structural analyses. The coalition observers expected them to take days to plan. Instead, Jin divided them into 3 teams after 20 minutes. We go in fast, Jin explained. Speed matters more than safety here. Team 1 stabilizes the immediate collapse. Team 2 find the survivors. Team 3 creates an extraction path. We rotate every 4 hours so no one dies from the toxic exposure. You'll all die from toxic exposure anyway, a coalition officer pointed out. Your equipment can't handle those conditions for more than an hour. De held up a modified respirator. I made some adjustments. These should last about 6 hours, maybe 7 if we're lucky. Should? The officer asked incredulously. Maybe. We don't have time for certainty. De replied. Those people are dying right now. The humans entered the collapsed mine. The coalition watched through remote cameras, expecting to witness disaster. Instead, they saw something they couldn't quite understand. The humans worked without stopping. When the toxic gases overwhelmed their respirators, they switched out with fresh teams, but they didn't leave the mine. They just moved to different sections, continuing the work. They ate and drank while working. They made jokes over their communication channels, even as they dug through rock with bleeding hands. How are they still going? One observer asked. After 30 hours, they haven't slept. Humans can function without sleep for extended periods. Dr. Hay explained. She was monitoring her people's vital signs, worried but not surprised. It's not healthy, but in emergencies, we can push our bodies beyond normal limits. 47 hours into the rescue, Jin's team broke through to the trapped workers. All 300 were alive but weak. The humans worked even faster now, creating a path wide enough to evacuate people. They carried beings twice their size on their backs they shared their oxygen with. Those who were suffocating, they refused to leave anyone behind. At the 50-hour mark, the last survivor was pulled from the mine. All 300 lived. None of the human rescuers died, though several collapsed from exhaustion once they reached the surface. The footage spread across the coalition networks. Within hours, billions watched humans work with impossible determination, risking everything for beings they'd never met. They saw humans laugh while facing death. They saw them refuse to quit, even when their bodies were failing. In council chambers and homes across 847 worlds, the same conversations were happening. Maybe the legends were wrong. Maybe humans weren't monsters. Maybe they were something else entirely. Tay sat beside Jin's medical bed, watching his friend recover from toxic exposure and exhaustion. "You didn't have to do that," Tay said quietly. Jin smiled weakly. "Yes, we did. We had to show them who we really are, not the monsters from their stories, just people who don't know how to give up." Outside the medical center, something was changing. For the first time since waking, humans weren't being watched with fear. They were being watched with something else: respect, maybe even gratitude. The legend was beginning to shift, but neither Tay nor Jin knew that their greatest test was still coming, arriving from the darkness between stars. The first world went silent on a Tuesday morning. Colony Rim 14, a peaceful agricultural world with 8 million inhabitants. One day they were sending crop reports and family messages. Next day nothing. The coalition sent scout ships to investigate. What they found made no sense. The planet was dead, not destroyed by weapons or natural disaster, but stripped. Every living thing was gone. The building stood empty. The fields were bare dirt. Even the insects and bacteria had been removed. It was as if someone had taken an eraser to all biological life and wiped it away. What could do this? General Mora asked, staring at the reports in horror. Unknown, replied her intelligence officer. We have no records of anything like this, not in 3,000 years of coalition history. By the end of the week, 3 more worlds had gone silent, then 5, then 12. Panic spread through the coalition. Governments evacuated outer worlds, pulling billions of civilians toward the core systems. Military fleets deployed to the frontier, searching for an enemy they couldn't identify. Ian was one of the humans working in coalition intelligence. She had been a data analyst on the original Earth expedition, someone who could look at patterns and see connections others missed. Now she sat in a secure facility, examining every piece of information about the attacks. "There," she said, pointing at her display. "See this? The attacks always move in the same pattern, spiral motion, clockwise, approaching from the galactic rim. Whatever this is, it's not random. It's systematic." Her coalition supervisor, a being with compound eyes and a methodical mind, studied the patterns. "You're right, but what's doing this? Our sensors show nothing until the attacks are already happening." "Because you're looking for the wrong things," Jan replied. "You're scanning for biological signatures or energy weapons. But look at this residue from the dead worlds. Silicon-based compounds, crystal structures, whatever attacked these worlds isn't biological like us. It's something else entirely." The coalition Scientists analyzed Hyan's findings. She was correct. The enemy wasn't made of flesh and blood, but of silicon and crystal, a form of life so different from anything in the coalition that their sensors couldn't recognize it as living. We need more information, General Mora said grimly. We need to understand what we're fighting. That's when Elder Nick spoke up. The ancient being had been quiet during the crisis meetings, but now he shuffled forward, his old body moving slowly. I know what they are, he said. I've seen them before, a very long time ago. Council chamber fell silent. Everyone knew Elder Nix was old, but exactly how old was unclear. His species lived for thousands of years, and he was ancient. Even by their standards, they're called the Voidborn, Elder Nix continued. Silicon-based collective entities that consume organic matter for resources. They came from beyond our galaxy, traveling through the void between stars. 12,000 years ago they attacked our ancestors. World after world fell. Nothing could stop them. How did you survive? Counselor Vix asked. We didn't, Elder Nix replied. Someone else saved us, another species that knew how to fight them, a species that understood warfare in ways we couldn't comprehend. He paused, his ancient eyes looking directly at Tay, who sat in the observer section. The humans saved us, that's why the old records speak of them. They fought the void in 12,000 years ago. Then they disappeared. We thought they were destroyed, but they weren't. They were sleeping. The council exploded with noise, everyone talking at once, arguing, questioning. Counselor Vix's voice cut through the chaos. If this is true, why don't we have clear records? Why are there only fragments and corrupted data? Because the coalition erased them, Elder Nick said heavily. After the Voidorn were defeated, the humans left. They said they didn't belong in a peaceful galaxy. They were warriors, and peace made them uncomfortable. The coalition was relieved. They were grateful for the help, but feared what humans might do during peacetime, so they removed the records, turned the humans into myths and warning stories to frighten children. It was easier than remembering the truth. Tay felt something cold settle in his chest. You made us into monsters on purpose. Yes, Elder Nix admitted, and now we desperately need those monsters again. General Mora called an emergency military council. Tay was invited along with Jin and several other humans who had military experience. Wu, a former tactical officer, sat beside Tay as they reviewed the situation. The numbers were bad. Voidborn had approximately 10,000 ships, all enormous crystalline structures that could survive almost any attack. Coalition had 3,000 combat vessels, but they were designed for police actions and border patrols, not real warfare. We have 90 days, General Mora said, her voice hollow. That's how long before they reach the core worlds. After that, the coalition falls. All 847 worlds. Trillions of lives. Show me your battle plans, Tay said. Quietly, General Mora displayed the coalition's defensive strategy. It involved forming lines of ships near strategic jump points, creating killing zones and holding position while evacuating civilians behind them. Jin looked at the plans and shook his head. This won't work. It's the standard defensive doctrine, Mora replied, slightly offended. Proven effective for thousands of years against other coalition ships, Wu said, against police actions and smugglers, not against an Enemy that wants to exterminate all biological life. Tay stood walking to the display. Your entire military philosophy is wrong for this fight. You're thinking about minimizing casualties and protecting resources. The Voidborn don't care about your defenses. They'll just keep coming until you're all dead. Then what do we do? Mora asked. You give me command, Tay said. Full authority over all coalition military forces, no oversight, no committees, no debate. If you want to survive, you need to fight like humans. Fight. And humans don't fight clean. The suggestion caused an uproar. Give command of the entire coalition military to a human, to someone from the species they'd feared for generations. It was unthinkable, but Elder Nick supported it. Ambassador Colt supported it, and slowly, desperately, others did too. Because they were out of options and out of time. The vote was close, but it passed. Commander Tay was given full military authority. His first orders shocked everyone. Retrofit every civilian ship for combat, Tay commanded. I don't care if it's a cargo hauler or a family transport. Add weapons, add armor, add whatever you can. Every ship that can fly will fight. That's insane. A coalition admiral protested. Civilians aren't soldiers, they'll be slaughtered. Better they die fighting than waiting. Tay replied coldly. The Voidborn don't take prisoners. Everyone fights or everyone dies. Those are the only choices. Doe was put in charge of the retrofit operations. She worked with coalition engineers to modify thousands of ships, turning peaceful vessels into weapons of war. It was ugly, brutal work, everything the coalition had spent 3,000 years avoiding. Jin trained soldiers. He taught them to be aggressive, to accept casualties, to keep moving forward even when it seemed hopeless. The coalition troops struggled with these concepts. They were bred for peace, not war. Hun continued analyzing the Voidborn, looking for any weakness. She worked 20 hours a day, surviving on stimulants and determination. One night, Dr. Hay found her collapsed over her workstation. You need to sleep, Hay said. Gently. Can't. Hyan mumbled. Need to find something, anything. There has to be a weakness, and if there isn't, Hyan looked up, her eyes red and tired. Then we make one. 90 days became 60, then 40. The Voidborn kept advancing, consuming world after world. The coalition abandoned the outer territories, pulling everything back to the Coulter system. This was the choke point, the strategic location where they'd make their stand. Ta stood on the bridge of the coalition flagship, looking at the assembled fleet. 3,000 warships, 5,000 armed civilian vessels against 10,000 Voidborn crystal ships. We're going to lose, General Mora said quietly beside him. Probably, Tay agreed. But we're going to make them pay for it, and maybe, just maybe, we'll hurt them enough that they don't have the strength to finish what they started. Is that human optimism? Mora asked. No, Tay replied. That's human stubbornness. We don't know how to quit even when we should. The Void arrived at the Coulter system on schedule, their crystal ships glittering in the darkness like terrible stars. The coalition fleet waited, every ship silent, every crew terrified. Tay opened a channel to the entire fleet, every ship, every soldier, every civilian with a weapon heard his voice. They think we're going to defend, Tay said. They think we'll sit here and try to hold our position while they grind us down. That's what the coalition has always done. Fight carefully, minimize losses. Survive to negotiate, he paused, letting the silence stretch, but we're not doing that when they get close. Enough, we're going forward into them. Through them, we're going to make them understand what humans learned a long time ago. Sometimes survival isn't about being careful, sometimes survival is about being willing to do what your enemy thinks is impossible. On thousands of ships, beings from hundreds of species felt something they'd never felt before, a cold, terrible understanding of what was about to happen. Follow my lead, Tay said, and if you die, the Coalition fleet charged forward like a tidal wave of metal and fire. Every ship, from massive warships to converted cargo haulers, accelerated toward the Voidorn formation. On the bridge of 1,000 vessels, crew members watched in terror and disbelief as the distance closed. The Voidborn didn't understand at first. In 12,000 years they had faced countless species across multiple galaxies. Everyone had tried to defend, to create distance, to survive. None had ever charged directly at them. The first collision happened within minutes. A Coalition destroyer, its hull already scarred from previous skirmishes, rammed directly into a Voidorn crystal ship. The impact destroyed both vessels instantly, but the debris field disrupted the Voidorn formation. All ships, Tay commanded. Over the open channel, any ship that's too damaged to fight, ram the nearest enemy vessel. Don't waste your death. Make it count, a Coalition admiral gasped. You're ordering suicide attacks. I'm ordering effective attacks, Tay replied coldly. A ship with a dying crew can still take an enemy with them. That's arithmetic, not cruelty. Across the battlefield, disabled Coalition ships turned toward enemy vessels. Some crews volunteered immediately, others hesitated, then did it anyway. The Voidorn were learning that biological life could be far more frightening than they'd anticipated. Jin commanded a strike wing of 50 fast attack craft. His pilots were a mix of species, none of them naturally aggressive. He'd spent weeks training them, teaching them to think like predators instead of prey. Remember, Jin said over his wings, private channel, they expect you to break off when they fire. Don't fly through their weapons fire. Get close. The closer you are, the less time they have to target you. That's insane, one pilot replied, her voice shaking. Yes. Jin agreed, that's why it'll work. They can't predict insanity. His wing dove into the enemy formation, weapons blazing. 3 ships were destroyed immediately by Voidorn defensive fire. The rest kept going, weaving through crystal structures, firing at point-blank range. Jin's ship took a glancing hit that tore away half his port wing. He compensated and kept flying. Target their connection points, Jin commanded. Where the crystals meet, that's the weak spot. His pilots followed his lead, and slowly, impossibly, void ships began to crack and shatter. It wasn't elegant or efficient, but it worked. Every Coalition ship was trading its life for pieces of the enemy. There was aboard an engineering vessel deep behind the front lines. She wasn't fighting directly, but her work was just as crucial. She discovered something during her weeks of studying Voidorn remains. The silicon-based entities used a specific frequency for internal communication. If that frequency could be disrupted, entire ships would lose coordination. We need to get this jamming device close to their command nexus, Doe explained to TA, via secure communication, but our long-range missiles can't penetrate Their defenses, we'd need to deliver it. Manually. How close, Tay asked. Inside there. Formation, probably inside there. Shields, that's a death sentence. Noda said quietly, I'll do it. Myself no, Tay replied, you're too valuable. We need your mind for what comes after, assuming there is an after. Then Hu Tay closed his eyes. Find volunteers. There will be volunteers, duh. Put out the call. She needed a team of 10 pilots to fly directly into the enemy formation through defenses that had destroyed hundreds of ships already to deliver a device that might not even work. She expected maybe a few desperate volunteers. 300 people responded within the hour. Coalition species, humans all willing to die for a chance to hurt the enemy. The selected 10 based on piloting skill and ship compatibility. She personally installed the jamming device on each vessel, making sure they understood how to activate it. As she worked, she talked to them, learning their names, their families, why they volunteered. My children are on the core worlds, one pilot told her. She was from a species with 4 arms and gentle eyes. If we don't stop them here, my children die. So I do this. Da hugged her, unable to find words. The Suicide Squadron launched at dawn the next day as the main battle entered its 3rd day of continuous fighting. By now both fleets were exhausted. The Voidorn had lost approximately 2,000 ships. The Coalition had lost 5,000. The math was brutal and clear. At this rate, the Coalition would be destroyed first. Jin volunteered to escort the Suicide Squadron as far as he could. His wing had been reduced to 12 ships from the original 50. They flew in formation with the 10 volunteers, clearing a path through enemy fighters. It's been an honor, Jin told the volunteers as they approached the Void Command Nexus. The honor is ours, the 4-armed pilot replied. Tell our families we died. Moving forward, I will, Jin promised. The 10 ships dove into the heart of the enemy formation. Voidorn defenses tore into them immediately. 4 ships exploded before reaching their targets. 3 more were destroyed while activating their devices. 2 ships made it through, detonating their jamming devices right next to the command nexus. For 5 seconds nothing happened. Then, across the battlefield, hundreds of Voidorn ships went dark. Their coordination failed. They stopped moving as a unified force and became individual vessels, confused and vulnerable. Now, Tay ordered all ships full attack. Hit them while they're disrupted. Coalition fleet surged forward. For the first time in 3 days they had an advantage. They pressed it mercilessly, destroying Voidorn ships faster than they'd managed before. But the jamming effect was temporary. After 10 minutes, the enemy began to coordinate again. Those 10 minutes cost the Voidorn 1,000 ships. It also cost the Coalition 2,000 more. The math was still terrible, but less terrible than before. Hun worked frantically in her lab, analyzing data from the jamming attack. There had to be more, some other weakness, something they could exploit. She'd been working for 70 straight hours. Her human body pushed beyond reasonable limits. There, she whispered, staring at her screen. Oh, that's it. She opened a channel directly to Ta's ship. I found something. The silicon structure isn't just for communication. It's how they process energy. If we hit them with specific wavelengths of radiation, we can disrupt their entire energy distribution system, can weaponize it. Tay asked, already working on it, but I need raw materials, rare isotopes, and I need time we don't have, Tay replied. How long? 12 hours minimum, Tay looked at his tactical display. The Coalition fleet was down to 3,000 ship. Total, the Voidborn had about 7,000. Remaining, 12 hours might as well be 12 years. Do it anyway, Tay ordered. I'll buy you the time. He switched to fleet-wide communication. All remaining ships, this is Commander Tay. We need to hold them here for 12 more hours. I know you're tired. I know we're losing, but 12 hours might give us a weapon that can end this. Can you give me 12 hours? The responses came from 1,000 ships. Different species, different languages. But the same message. Yes, they'd fight. For 12 more hours, they'd fight until they couldn't anymore. The battle intensified. Coalition ships that could barely fly anymore threw themselves at the enemy. Crews that should have been evacuating stayed at their posts, firing until their weapons melted or their holes breached. The void kept coming, grinding down the defenses with mechanical efficiency. Jin's wing was down to 3 ships now. His own craft was held together more by hope than engineering. 1 engine was gone. Life support was failing. His communication system worked intermittently, but he could still fly, so he kept fighting. A Voidborn fighter targeted one of his wingmates, a young pilot who'd only joined the military 6 months ago. Jin put his ship between them, taking the hit that should have killed her. His ship's remaining engine exploded. All power died. Jin, his wingmate, screamed over the radio, "Are you alive?" "Barely." Jin coughed. His cabin was filling with smoke. "Get clear. I'm done. I'll tow you back." "No time. Keep fighting." Jin looked at his controls. No power, no weapons, no engines, but he still had momentum. And he still had a ship full of explosive fuel. He aimed himself at the nearest Voidborn command vessel and overrode the emergency safety systems on his fuel tanks. "Tell my friends I died doing something stupid," Jin said with a laugh. "They'll appreciate that." He hit the detonation button. His ship, traveling at combat speed, slammed into the void vessel and exploded with the force of a small nuclear weapon. The enemy ship cracked apart, taking 2 smaller vessels with it. Across the battlefield, other Coalition pilots saw what Jin had done. Some cried, some raged, but they all understood the message. If dying was inevitable, die, making the enemy pay. 12 hours later, Hyan's weapon was ready. A missile carrying a payload of radioactive material specifically tuned to disrupt silicon-based energy distribution. They had exactly 1 shot. If it failed, the Coalition would fall. Within hours, Dr. Hay stood beside Hyan as they loaded the missile. Both women were exhausted beyond reason, running on nothing but determination and chemical stimulants. "Will it work?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," Han admitted. "Probably not, but it's the only chance we have." The missile launched from a modified cargo vessel. Sun, one of the most skilled human pilots, volunteered to guide it in. The missile was too important to trust to automated systems. The war ended on a quiet morning with no celebration and no parades. The Coalition fleet limped back to the core worlds, carrying the wounded and the traumatized. Every ship was scarred. Every crew had lost someone. The victory felt hollow because of how much it had cost. Of the 2,000 humans who woke from cryosleep, only 847 remained alive. The Rest had died in the rescue operations, the battle preparations, or the final fight against the Voidorn. Their names were recorded in every Coalition database, translated into every language, remembered by every species. Ta stood at the memorial 6 months after the battle ended. It was a simple structure, built on the capital world, a wall of black stone carved with names, human names, Coalition names altogether. No division between species, just a list of everyone who died defending civilization from extinction. A delegation from the Coalition Council approached him. Tay didn't turn around. He knew what they wanted. Commander Tay, Counselor Vic said formally, the Council wishes to offer you permanent command of Coalition military forces with full authority and our complete trust. No, Tay replied, simply, still looking at the wall of names. Number Vic seemed genuinely surprised. But you saved us all. The entire galaxy owes you a debt that can never be repaid. That's exactly why. Can't accept, Tay said. He finally turned to face them. You saw what we did, how we fought, how many died. Because of the orders I gave. That's not who you are. That's not who you want to be. You're peaceful people. You should stay that way. But if another threat comes, Rix began, then you'll face it with your own methods. Tay interrupted gently. You learned from us. You adapted. You survived. You don't need us to be your warriors anymore. You can protect yourselves. General Mora was part of the delegation. She stepped forward, her amphibious features sad. Where will you go? Somewhere quiet, Tay replied. We've fought enough. The humans who are left, we just want to live in peace, grow food, raise families. If we can be anything except soldiers. The Council granted the remaining humans citizenship without restrictions. They could live anywhere, work in any field, travel freely across all Coalition worlds. The fear was gone, replaced by respect and gratitude. Dr. Hay became the chief ambassador for human affairs, helping the survivors integrate into Coalition society. She gave lectures at universities talking about human culture, biology, and psychology. She wanted future generations to understand humans as people, not just warriors. During one lecture, a young student asked her a difficult question. Is it true humans enjoy fighting? That violence comes naturally to you? Hay considered her answer carefully. We don't enjoy violence, but we're good at it. Our evolution on Earth made us survivors, and sometimes survival requires fighting. The important thing is that we chose when to fight. We fought for you, for the Coalition, because it was right, not because we wanted to, but because we had to. That's the difference between a warrior and a monster. That continued her engineering work, but now she focused on rebuilding. Instead of destroying, she helped design new colony ships, better communication systems, and safer mining equipment. She trained Coalition engineers in human problem-solving methods, teaching them to think differently about challenges. One evening, she sat with a group of young engineers from various species. They asked her about the modifications she made during the war, the weapons and tactics she developed. I'm not proud of that work, Doe admitted. I'm good at it, but that doesn't mean I like doing it. I became an engineer to build things, to create, to improve lives. War made me a destroyer instead. I hope I never have to do that again. The remaining human survivors scattered across Coalition space. Some stayed together, forming small communities. Others integrated Fully into mixed species colonies, they took various jobs, lived quiet lives, and tried to forget the war, but they couldn't forget. Every survivor carried the weight of what they'd done and seen. Some struggled more than others. Yun worked at a research institute studying peaceful applications of various technologies. She rarely talked about her role in developing the weapon that ended the war. When people asked, she changed the subject. One night, a colleague found her crying in her lab. "What's wrong?" they asked gently. "I killed them all," Hyan whispered. 7,000 ships, millions of void entities. I developed the weapon that destroyed them. I'm a mass murderer. You saved trillions of lives, her colleague replied. That doesn't make the deaths way less, Hyan said. I understand why I did it. I'd do it again if I had to, but understanding doesn't make it easier to carry. The coalition held an official ceremony 1 year after the battle. Every species sent representatives. The remaining humans were invited as honored guests. Many didn't attend, unable to face the public attention, but Tay went representing all of them. Ambassador Cowell gave a speech about courage and sacrifice. Elder Nix spoke about the importance of remembering history accurately. Counselor Vix, who had feared humans the most at first, talked about how wrong his prejudices had been. Then they asked Tay to speak. He stood at the podium looking out at billions watching across the galaxy and struggled to find words. We're not heroes, Tay said. Finally, we're survivors who did what needed to be done. Every species here would have done the same in our position. You just hadn't needed to learn how yet. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The old legend said humans were dangerous. They were right. We are dangerous, but danger isn't the same as evil. A fire is dangerous, but it also keeps you warm. A knife is dangerous, but it also cuts your food. Humans are dangerous, but we're also loyal, protective, and willing to die for people we barely know. He looked at the memorial wall, visible behind him. Real heroes are there, the ones who didn't survive. They gave everything so that civilization could continue. Human and coalition together, not because we were the same, but because we chose to stand together anyway. After the ceremony, a group of young coalition children approached Tay. Their teacher had brought them to see the memorial and teach them about the war. One child, barely old enough to understand what death meant, looked up at Tay with wide eyes. Are you really one of the humans from the legends? Tay knelt down to the child's level. I'm just a person. The legends made us sound bigger than we are. My parent says you saved everyone. The child continued, that you're the bravest beings in the galaxy. Your parent is kind, Tay replied, but bravery isn't about not being scared. It's about being scared and doing what's necessary anyway. Everyone who fought was brave. Human coalition, all of us. Will you fight again if more bad things come? The child asked innocently. Tay looked at the memorial wall, at the names of his friends who died because he ordered them into battle. Jin Sung and over 1,000 others. I hope I never have to, he said quietly. I really hope I never have to. Years passed. The survivors aged. Some married coalition citizens, creating the first mixed families. Others stayed alone, carrying their memories in silence. Galaxy slowly healed from the trauma of war. Tay eventually settled on a quiet agricultural world, far from the capital And the politics, he grew vegetables in a small garden and rarely talked about. The past, when people recognized him, he politely declined interviews in public. Appearances, doctor, he visited him. Sometimes they sat in his garden, drinking tea and watching the sunset. Do you have regrets? He asked during one visit. Everyday, Tay replied. I see their faces, everyone who died following my orders, I hear their voices. Sometimes I wonder if there was a better way, something I missed. Would you do it differently if you could go back? Tay was quiet for a long time. No, every decision I made for the right reasons. That doesn't mean they don't haunt me, living with the weight of those decisions. That's my responsibility, the price I pay for surviving when so many didn't. Coalition survey ship eventually found Earth. The sun hadn't died as the original humans feared. It was still burning, still supporting life, but Earth itself was empty of intelligent life. Humanity's ancient civilization had collapsed for other reasons, lost to time and history. The Coalition offered to help resettle Earth, to rebuild humanity's home world. The surviving humans debated this for months. Some wanted to return to reclaim their heritage, others felt they'd moved beyond Earth, that their home was now with the Coalition. In the end, they decided to leave Earth as a memorial, a planet-sized monument to what was lost and what was found. Ships could visit, but no one would live there. It would remain a reminder of where humans came from and how far they'd traveled. 30 years after the war, Tay was old and tired. He lived a quiet life exactly as he wanted. On his final day, surrounded by friends, both human and Coalition, he looked at the sky. We did good, he whispered. Didn't we? You did better than good, he replied, holding his hand. You gave everyone a future. Not me, Tay corrected gently. All of us together. He closed his eyes and died peacefully, the first of the human survivors to reach the end. Naturally, his funeral was attended by thousands, species from across the galaxy coming to pay respects. The memorial wall gained one more name. The Coalition continued. Peace returned, but the militarities now taught human tactics alongside traditional methods. The engineering schools studied human innovation.